Al Michaels it'll be his 15th season as the voice of the NFL on NBC. He's the only commentator to call a World Series, a Super Bowl, an NBA Finals, and host the Stanley Cup Final for a television network. And I'm thinking to myself, I've been saying this, Al, that LeBron wants a season back because, he doesn't have a ton left. And I'm looking at Al Michaels, and I'm thinking, you probably won't be doing this in 20 years. You are jonesing for football, am I right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, everybody who loves sports, Colin, everybody who loves the NFL wants it to come back, but there's no way you can predict what's going to go on. Nobody really knows anything. You hear 48 different timelines. They can start on time. They'll start in late November. They'll do this. They'll do that. They'll have a truncated schedule. They'll play the Super Bowl in March. They won't play until 2021. So I'm just sitting here watching the world go around, Colin, and I don't have any more of a better idea than anybody else does. All I know is that it's the first time in history we are all victims and suspects. We're victims because none of us signed up for this. I mean, this just came, and here we are. And we're suspects, as you know, when you walk down the street and you don't have a mask on, even if you do, that people are avoiding you like you've come in with an AK-47.
Right.
So it's a crazy time. Never seen anything like it. Never thought we would see anything like it. But here we are, and let's see how it all shakes out, because I don't have any idea.
Yeah, either do I. Some of these models that are predicting, fatalities, they change daily. I tell friends this. The only thing I know is social spacing seems to work, I think. I'm not even, Sweden didn't do it, and they're fine. So I don't know. Now, how do you pass your time? What does Al Michaels do on a Tuesday with no games?
You know, Colin, I've been trying to avoid myself. Now, what I mean by that is, the other night, I am watching the MLB Network, and all of a sudden, the first game of the 1995 World Series, Atlanta-Cleveland, pops up, and I'm doing the game with Tim McCarver and Jim Palmer. Now, over on NBC SN at that particular point is a Sunday night football game between Green Bay and Kansas City. A friend of mine calls and says, hey, you and Doc Rivers are announcing Lakers-San Antonio, the game where Derek Fisher hits the shot with 0.4 of a second. That's on NBA TV. And my grandson says, hey, Pop, you're on Miracle on whatever it was on. So I'm thinking to myself, here I am. I'm just trying to stay underground. You know, the great thing is in the off season, I kind of fade away, and then when you come back, people say, oh, it's good to have you back. Now, it's like, get out of here. I can't get rid of you. And that's the way I feel right now.
Let's go back about a month and a half. I was shocked. I wasn't shocked Tom left. I was surprised. But Tampa, a place I lived, caught me off guard. They've been a little dysfunctional forever, and I think I didn't see Tom going from highly functional to a little bit dysfunctional, or a lot dysfunctional. What did you make of Tom, what did you make of the Tampa move?
Well, it's gotten a lot of publicity because I said recently that when Tom came into our meeting, we did New England at Baltimore, Colin, first, I think, Sunday in November. They were 8-0, and that defense was allowing, less than 10 points a game. The offense wasn't playing particularly well, but Brady was an undefeated quarterback, and one of the things he said in the meeting, kind of half seriously, I'm the most unhappy 8-0 quarterback in football, and that got a lot of play. I mean, he said that a little bit tongue-in-cheek. But then I said to him in this meeting, and, we've had 100 meetings with him, and I know Tom very, very well. I said, I'm going to lay odds of 43,000 to 1. You will never, ever wear another uniform beside New England. And, I figured I'd get some sort of response from him. He just laughed. He kind of laughed and, shook his head a little bit, and he wasn't going to give me the answer. I don't think he knew the answer. But one of our research people, Andy Freeland, plunked $2 down on the table. I took it. And I am now on the hook, Colin, for $86,000 thanks to Tom Brady. But you know what an installment plan paying $3 a year will look like, and that's what Andy's going to get. I may give him $5 the first time we go in there, but that's about it.
The Michael Jordan Last Dance documentary, you covered the NBA for, years for, NBA Finals.
Right.
Do you give me your memories of Michael Jordan, perhaps your first memory?
Well, I didn't do any of his games because by the time I got in there, Michael had retired, even from the Wizards at that point. But my only experience with Michael, or my first anyway, I was in Hawaii. We were on Maui in 1998, and Michael had just retired again from the Bulls. He'd already played minor league baseball in the mid-'90s, and I run into him on the beach, and I didn't know him. But, we struck up a conversation. He said, "You play golf?" I said, "Sure." He said, "Well, tomorrow we got a game. Why don't you meet me up at Wailea at 1 o'clock? Great. So I go over to Wailea, and Michael is there, and he's got the head pro, and he introduces me to the fourth guy, and he says, "Do you know Joe Morgan?" And we both laughed because when I did the Reds in the early 70s, of course I knew Joe Morgan. He played for the Big Red Machine at that point, so we're laughing. We had a great time. And then Michael was playing great golf. He probably has 6 or 7 birdies. He had one shot out of a fairway bunker with a 5-iron, 200 yards, that almost went in, missed by an inch. And he was playing great, having a blast. So we go into the restaurant bar at Wailea afterwards. It's about 5 o'clock, and we're sitting maybe 50 feet from a television set, which is probably 27 inches, that sits on top of the bar. And this is at a time when Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire are chasing Roger Maris's record. Everybody's consumed in the sports world, and can they get there? So they each had like 50-something at that point. And ESPN is on. There's no sound. We look up, and there's a panel. The way they used to put the panel up, you had a ton of statistical information. It's all sort of agate type. We can barely see it. And Joe and I get up from the table to get closer to the television to see if we can see if Sosa hit a home run. And Michael sits there and doesn't even squint, and he's reading every line. So Morgan and I look at each other like, can he really do this? And then we walked down into the parking lot, Joe and I, and we said, can you believe this guy's eyesight? I mean, they talk about Ted Williams and what he could see, but Michael Jordan, from 50 feet away on a 27-inch screen, could read every number, including those in parentheses. And I said to Joe, Joe, can you imagine what that rim must have looked like from 18 feet out? He saw that in 4 or 5D, not 3D.
Yeah, you've got amazing stories. We were talking this morning as a staff that Michael's got the greatest sports brand of all time. Last year, he made more money, $130 million in shoes, than LeBron, Steph, KD, the late Kobe Bryant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving combined. Made sold 129 million shoes. Babe Ruth was a brand before brands existed. Go back to all the guys you have covered. Muhammad Ali jumps. You even did boxing, by the way. Al Michaels joining us. I always said Tiger felt massive to me. Ali. Who is the second biggest brand to Jordan that you think the sports world has? Babe Ruth almost feels like it that it's ever had.
Well, you have to relate it, though, to the time, Colin. I mean, Babe Ruth at one point was making so much more than anybody else. So, in other words, he was his own brand in those years. But, I mean, what was $100,000 then is, you tell me what it is right now, several million.
Right.
So you can't compare the actual numbers with what took place 50, 60, 100 years ago. So, I mean, Ruth had to be a brand at that point. I mean, he was big enough that, they named a candy bar after him.
Right.
Down the line. And everybody knew who he was. I think everybody now knows who he was. The name is familiar to everybody. And, so I go by generations. If you look at Wayne Gretzky in Canada, could anybody have ever been any bigger in Canada than Wayne was?
Yeah.
And Michael, and I mean, Kobe was a tremendous brand as well. He played, I guess, if you look at Michael 1, Kobe 2 in terms of brand recognition and longevity and all the rest, but they were very, very close. Tiger's a one-off in golf, though, too. Even in the years of Nicklaus and, look, Palmer, go back to Palmer. Palmer may have been the first really gigantic brand in the 70s. They loved him. People emulated him. Just the walk that he had, smoking a cigarette, the whole thing. And Palmer was as big as it got in the sports world at that particular point. Then Jack came along. Palmer had a little bit more of an outgoing personality than Jack did, and Gary Player was there as well. But Gary didn't play in that many tournaments. He was from South Africa, and so but they were the big three. But Palmer was the biggest. And then when you get to Tiger, I mean, Colin, you know, there's nobody. Who's second in golf? Tell me who's second in golf to Tiger.
Well, Tiger is the walking Sopranos. He made me change my late Sunday viewing habits. He know what he did, Al? This is what Ali did. When you can be great, Ali was, have a personality, and be glamorous. Ali was glamorous. Tiger changed my viewing habits.
Yeah.
No golfer, I love Jack. Nobody in golf has ever changed my viewing habits. I would be hanging out on a Sunday afternoon and be like, oh, God, I got to get to a television set. Tiger leads by 6 shots. And you're a big golf guy. So you haven't golfed in too much. This must be driving you crazy.
Nuts.
Yeah, because you golf every day.
So you're right about Tiger, and especially, you go to last year and the Masters, and everybody's talking about it. The whole country is consumed with it. The next day, what he was able to do. And he had so many of those things around him that made him what he was. I mean, he was not necessarily a guy that was a very cuddly, let's say, early in his career. I mean, he could be very standoffish. He could be off-putting in a way, but he's gotten a little bit better, a lot better actually, in his golf dotage. I mean, he did that thing with Jim Nance the other day, which was really great. But back to boxing, Ali, you know what's funny? One of the great things this weekend, I just happened to come upon, ESPN had a whole bunch of great fights back to back to back.
Yeah.
On, I think it was Sunday. One of them I did the Hagler-Hearns fight back in 1985. This baby pops up, which was great. That was 8 minutes. It was fantastic. But they had the trilogy of Ali Frazier, and I forgot how fantastic that was. And even my wife is sitting there looking at him and going, wow, he's so much more than a boxer. He's a showman, the way he's mugging with Frazier, the whole thing, looking at the crowd. He had everything going for him. I mean, everything. And, of course, then he'd get together with Cosell, and that made for a great show, a terrific show. He understood it. Ali was something unbelievably special.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.